I want to answer some common questions I receive from marriage-based green card applicants because I do a lot of these. So if you need assistance, feel free to reach out. And these questions are really about just the timeline, how to best prepare your application, and what to expect throughout the process. So I'm gonna try to take you from the perspective of someone who knows almost nothing about marriage-based green card applications to just tell you a lot of the stuff that we would go through during an initial consultation if you wanted to speak with me individually. So one of the first things I like to ask people when I'm consulting with them is how they met, when they started living together, when they opened a joint bank account, when they got married, how'd they make those decisions, questions about each other's families. Have you been divorced before? Have you petitioned for other immigrants before? Because that is relevant at the interview. If you've petitioned for more people before, let's say you've been married 3 times, including this marriage, and both prior times you petitioned for your immigrant spouse and got them green cards, there's gonna be some additional scrutiny when you attend the interview to make sure that this isn't a fraudulent marriage just to give your current spouse a green card as well. After we go through some of these particulars of the specific marriage, I like to explain what the timeline generally looks like. So once we file everything with USCIS, which takes us around 2 weeks to prepare all the paperwork and package, finalize it, perfect it, and then I'll submit everything to USCIS. One of the first things we receive about 2 to 3 weeks later is some receipt notices in the mail. Now before this, you'll receive these notices electronically if you have an online USCIS account, which is not required. But if you don't, you'll receive some notices in the mail, one for the family petition, one for the green card application, and optionally one for a work permit and one for advance parole, which is permission to travel internationally. And at the same time, simultaneously, my office will also receive these notices in the mail. So if for some reason you don't receive something, I'll receive it and then we'll give you a call to tell you what you need to do. About a month later, you'll be scheduled for a biometrics appointment notice. This is gonna be only for the immigrant spouse, the person who's applying for permanent residence. The notice is gonna basically say you need to show up at this place at this time, bring some government ID, and bring this notice with you. And you just show up, it's like 5 minutes, they take your picture, they take your fingerprints, and then they use that picture on your eventual work permit and down the road, your green card application. After the biometrics notice, we might receive a request for evidence if there was something defective in the case. For example, there was an issue with your birth certificate and we need to get a new one, or a tax document was defective, or there was some other problem with your affidavit of support. These are probably the most common issues I see. And sometimes, by the way, it's not the applicant's fault. If you used an attorney or not, it's not necessarily the attorney's fault. USCIS makes a lot of mistakes with the affidavit of support. It's one of the most common reasons for which a request for evidence is issued. And sometimes we just resubmit everything we previously submitted without making any changes, and it's good to go. But for most people, I would say there is no request for evidence, at least the majority of my cases that we prepare, in which case you might not hear anything back from USCIS for several months. And then the next thing that will happen is you'll get an interview appointment notice, which is typically issued 3 to 6 weeks before the actual interview. Once you receive the interview appointment notice, if you're one of my clients anyway, we schedule an appointment for me to meet with you guys to practice for the interview. We're gonna create a list of documents you need to bring to the interview, any updated evidence of your marriage you need to bring, and how to answer questions that you might not know the answer to, like what structure to use when you're telling USCIS that you don't know the answer, or you don't remember, or you're very nervous, like how exactly to best say these things. And then after the interview, what your expectations should be. I just did another video on this, but I'll just repeat it here in this short snippet. After the interview, it's quite common for you to receive a notice that says that a decision cannot be made right then and there, and that they need 120 days to make the decision. This isn't a bad thing. It doesn't mean that your application is being investigated, or that they suspect fraud, or there's something problematic. In fact, I would say 80 to 90% of people get this notice, and then the following business day, the I-130 and the I-485 applications get approved. once the I-485, the green card application, is approved, typically within 2 to 4 weeks, you receive the green card in the mail. You can check the case status. It's gonna say like your case was approved to we're gonna now produce your card to your card has been printed and is now being shipped to you and here's the tracking number. You can check it or just wait 2 to 4 weeks. It'll arrive whether you check it or not. If for some reason it doesn't arrive, you would need to make a service request. That's pretty rare. I've had that happen like twice in like our last 1,000 green card applications, and usually it's like a postal service issue where they deliver it to the wrong place, it gets sent back, and then you need to request it again from USCIS. After I explain this process, the next question I get from people is, how long does this process take? First of all, I like to say that the process is gonna take 12 to 18 months. But in reality, I don't actually expect it to take that long. I'm just anticipating a lot of slowdowns now that everyone is being scheduled for an interview and the Trump administration is literally making USCIS officers' lives hell, which is causing like 30% of them to quit and massive backlogs for all the other ones. I just did a video about how USCIS processing times are literally about to double, straight from the mouth of a ISO. One of the service officers who does these interviews posted something on Reddit explaining exactly what their experience is right now and how it's really miserable to be one of these immigration officers and how the government is intentionally trying to slow things down. But I will say, I submitted many of these applications, like probably more than 40 at the end of December to the beginning of January alone. And right now, in the last few weeks, all of these people have been getting interviewed and half of them already have their green cards, like as of the filming of this video in the middle of May. So, 5 months is what I saw, but the backlog hadn't started yet. I filed all these before Trump became president and began slowing things down with USCIS. So I would not be surprised at all if the ones that I'm filing in May take twice as long, 10 months, but hopefully not. I'm hoping that most of the ones we file like in the middle of 2025 are gonna get approved in less than a year, but I don't know and nobody knows the answer to that question. Another question I regularly receive is, can I get deported while my green card application is pending? And the answer is, you can, but it's very unlikely. Usually speaking, when someone has an adjustment of status application pending, ICE officers back off because they see that you are in the process of legalizing your status. There have been some notable exceptions. There was that news article about the USCIS working with ICE officers at this Florida, I think Miami field office where they detained 3 people who showed up for their USCIS interview. I believe one of them was a visa overstay, which was the shocking one. Another one entered without inspection, and I don't remember about the third one. The visa overstay one, I wonder if there was something extraordinary about that situation, like maybe they had a criminal history that caused ICE to target them. I honestly don't know what the deal was, but I've never seen anything like that happen in other USCIS field offices. Nothing like that has ever happened to one of my clients. Knock on wood, this is wood. But generally speaking, once you have an adjustment of status application pending, I believe it offers some level of protection. I've even spoken to ICE officers before that have told me they want to see that you have something pending. If you're just here out of status or completely illegally with nothing pending, then you are fair game for them to target you. Another side note, let's say you have an adjustment of status application pending and immigration officers give you a notice to appear in immigration court to begin your deportation proceedings. Adjustment of status is also a defense from removal. So when you show up to court and the judge asks you what defenses will you be seeking from removal, the response can be adjustment of status through an immediate relative family petition. As long as you entered legally, there's been no major issues that make you inadmissible, and you have an immediate relative family member like a US citizen spouse or a US citizen son or daughter who's over the age of 21, you should be eligible for adjustment of status as a defense, as a remedy from deportation as well. And I believe that's also a big part of the reason why historically ICE and enforcement and removal operations, ERO, doesn't target people who have an adjustment of status application pending. Whether that continues to be the case is yet to be seen, but at least Now, in May 2025, I believe this to be true. For marriage-based adjustment of status applications, it's important to submit as much evidence as possible in the beginning of the process when you file your package with USCIS. When I prepare these packages and I submit them out, I want to include as much evidence that they are in a good faith marriage as possible along with the application. Because if we just submit a couple photographs and like the marriage certificate, there's a good chance that before the interview is scheduled, you will receive a request for evidence indicating that the I-130 doesn't have enough evidence that it's a bona fide marriage. And any request for evidence, or even worse, a notice of intent to deny, will cause major delays in the processing of your case. And at that point, you're gonna just have to mail in way more evidence to even get to the interview. If you submit enough evidence up front, once you get to the interview, you need to bring way more stuff. So the general rule is everything that you submitted a copy of, for example, your marriage certificate, birth certificate, spouses, proof of US citizenship, whether it's a US birth certificate, US passport, or certificate of naturalization, you submitted copies of all that stuff. So you need to now bring the original and a photocopy to the interview. And then for all of the evidence, such as like bank accounts, lease agreements, joint insurance, correspondence between the spouses, evidence of travel, photographs, all that stuff. Anything that you submitted, bring an original if an original exists, like if there is an original lease agreement, which is rare, bring that. If there are original cards like congratulating you, bring those in a photocopy. And you have to bring updated versions. So bring the original, bring a photocopy, and if available, bring an updated version of it. So bank accounts, you're gonna bring updated versions, lease agreements, maybe health insurance cards, all the stuff that we submitted, we go through it to make sure that you bring the original, a photocopy, and if there's an updated version, you bring that as well. And for a lot of things, there is no original, but the few things I did mention are mandatory. And that also includes divorce certificates if either spouse has been divorced before. If you're new to my channel, last week I posted a pretty good video on exactly what you can expect at the green card interview. So check out that video. A lot of people who are going through this process really appreciated it and said it was good stuff. I included questions that are directly from an immigration officer that I wrote down during an interview so that I could just share what my experience was like, really to help calm people down who are like freaking out about this process. Because, you know, what I tell everyone is if the marriage is real and you document it, and you practice with a lawyer on how to answer questions that you don't know the answer to, how to actually tell the officer you don't know the answer to that, you're gonna be fine at the interview. You're not gonna be separated at your first interview. You will only be separated if they suspect fraud. And that won't be at the first interview. That'll be a second interview scheduled pretty far out in the future. That's called a Stokes interview. In all the cases I've done, I've had that happen like twice in my entire life. And that is also because I only accept cases that I believe are good faith marriages. So if you're in a good faith marriage and you've prepared and done your homework, you're probably good to go and you don't need to worry that much. If you're really nervous, prepare with a lawyer before you attend your interview. A question I regularly receive is, does a lawyer need to go with me to the interview? I'm really nervous. Can a lawyer go with me? Sure, a lawyer can go with you. I mean, lawyers will do whatever you want if you pay them enough. But I think for most people, it's a waste of money to bring the lawyer with you to an interview. It's important to prepare with the lawyer before the interview, to know which documents to bring and know how to answer certain questions that you might not know the answer to. That's really what I practice with people before the interview. And really, like for most people, 45 minutes is all it takes to go through the list of documents, answer questions, get them prepared, and we have good outcomes by doing it that way. If you guys have any specific questions, you could always schedule a consultation directly with me. I would love to talk to you about your case if you have any specific questions, or if you need a lawyer to represent you, I could do that as well. If you're new to my channel and you're interested in more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. I try to put out a few videos each week, and I'll see you guys next time for another video.